Today, we shall try to understand the poem The Snail written by William Cooper. William Cooper is a British poet. He writes about the country life of England. The Snail is a poem which we find in our class 10 syllabus. Usually, in our surroundings, we find many animals, many insects to whom we do not pay attention to. They have unique way of living, their life is unique, but still we do not pay sufficient attention to them and we fail to understand the uniqueness of their living. Through this poem, the poet gives us a magnifying glass through which we can see, we can have some insight into the life of the snail. Let us read the poem. But before starting the poem, we shall have some issues which we should know beforehand. In this poem, we find examples of enjambment. Enjambment is a technique used in poetry, and through this technique, the line, the sentence is continued to the next line or lines without any pause, and it gives the poem a kind of speed. We find the extension of meaning without any pause. Enjambment spelling Enjambment. Enjambment. Another point is there, if we look into the form of the stanzas, we shall find that it has a definite kind of shape or form. Every stanza has 4 lines, and first 3 lines is written in such a way that the first 3 lines as if constitutes the body of the snail, along with its shell, and the last line, which usually consists of 1 or 2 words, as if constitute the front part of the snail with its horns. It is the stanzas has a resemblance to the body of the snail. Another point should be noted that the poem has a definite rhyme scheme. If the poem has 4 stanzas, and if we read the poem carefully, we shall find that the rhyme scheme is A, E, B, E, C, D, E. That means the last lines of all the stanzas are rhyming, and the first 3 lines of the stanzas are in rhyme. Now let us read the poem. To grass or leaf or fruit or wall, the snail sticks close, nor fears to fall, as if he grew there, house and all together. The first stanzas shows its physical movement, is physical structure. How? The snail sticks close. The snail has a very slow movement. It does not move very fast. And when it sticks to grass or leaf or fruit or wall, it sticks so closely that it has no fear to fall. Again, the poet writes that as if he grew there, house and all together. the poet suggests that the snail carries his house on his back, that is his shell, and it sticks so closely to the grass or leaf or fruit or wall, so closely that the snail, the poet imagines that the snail is the extension of the grass or the leaf or the fruit or the wall. It is an inseparable part, as if it is an inseparable part of the grass or leaf or fruit or wall. The thing, the snail, sticks closely. Let us read the second stanza. Within that house secure he hides when danger imminent betides, of storm or other harm betides of weather. If we read this stanza in a prose way, in a prose statement, we should read it then: when the imminent danger of storm betides, or when other harm of weather betides, he hides within that house. The snail may face some natural calamity, natural issues which are not favorable for his existence. There may be some bad weather, inclement weather, which may harm the snail. If those things happen, what the snail will do? The snail will realize the imminent danger. Imminent means something which is going to happen. When imminent danger betides mean occur or happen. When the snail faces those dangers, when the snail faces those inclement weather, then he securely hides himself within his shell, that is his house, to protect himself from the inclement weather. Now the third stanza. Give but his horn the slightest touch, his self-collecting power is such, he shrinks into his house with much displeasure. Again, if we read the stanza in a prose form, we shall find that if you give his horns, we know the snails have two receptors, two horns, with which he communicates himself with the environment. If a person or if something touches its horn, if the touch is slightest one, his receptive ability is so huge or so immense that he collects himself. His self-collecting power, that means he can hide immediately as soon as has the touch been given. The snail uses given, then the snail applies his self-collecting power in such a way that he immediately shrinks himself within his house, that is within his shell, and all this thing is done by him with much displeasure. This kind of hindrances, this kind of harm, this kind of interference in his life causes much displeasure, much irritation, much bitterness for him. And when he responds to that irritation or bitterness, he responds is very quickly, and he immediately collects himself, he immediately hides himself within his house. Now we come to the last stanza of the poem. Wherever he dwells alone. The snail lives alone. The snail has no companion. The snail lives alone. Except himself he chattels none. Chattels means belongings. The snail has no belongings. The snail has nothing to possess. He possesses himself only. And he considers himself as his only treasure, well satisfied to be his own whole treasure. The snail has nothing, the snail has no companion to live with, but still his life is a life of satisfaction. He does not have any kind of displeasure, any kind of dissatisfaction as he lives alone, as he has nothing but himself. But still, he, he leads a satisfactory life. If we read the poem, we shall find perhaps the poet gives us a message. Civilization gives us the idea of excess. What does it mean? Idea of excess means civilization teaches us to live with excess. We buy something which is not necessary for us, very much not essentially necessary for us. We often spend money without thinking. Often we termed it as consumerism. The poet may write this poem against that kind of philosophy. We don't have the two other stanzas of the poem in our syllabus. In the two stanzas which are not included in our syllabus, there is an expression hermit like living. Hermit like living. We know the hermit usually lives a life of renunciation. Renunciation means sacrifice. They sacrificed everything. A hermit sacrifices everything in his life, all the earthly pleasures and things, and he depends on the bare necessities of life. Only the necessary things are essential to him, and he collects those things and live on them. There is no excess, there is no other things. Here, the snail perhaps is the symbol of that philosophy, that philosophy which tells us that life should be lived without excess. You should depend, you should collect you should depend on, or you should collect only the necessary things. And if we follow the principle, if we follow the philosophy of life, then our life as well as other person's life would be comfortable, more comfortable one. Why? Because then the resources would not be accumulated in some hands, depriving others. Those things, those philosophy is perhaps elaborated through this poem, The Snail. Okay, it is all for the day.